A deadly zombie virus that could destroy humanity suddenly emerged, and the beginning of it all can be traced back to 2 weeks ago. Rose is a designer who has always worked diligently. However, due to her introverted personality, her designs were too rigid and gradually became the laughingstock of the company. Her boss often used her as an example to remind other employees. Despite this, she was not fired. Until one day, Brad, the male photographer in the company, actively invited her to attend the company party that evening. That's when everything began to change. Brad's invitation made Rose feel both surprised and nervous. She was overjoyed and eagerly agreed, then couldn't wait to tell her sister Chelsea about it. When Chelsea learned that Rose planned to attend the party wearing her work attire, she quickly stopped her and personally gave her a makeover. Even so, when Rose arrived at the venue, she was stopped by the security guard at the entrance. While she patiently waited for her identity to be verified, 2 female models from the company passed by and effortlessly entered the venue without being checked. This scene made Rose feel uncomfortable, but she chose to endure and did not express her feelings. When they finally met, Brad kissed her without hesitation. At that moment, Rose's body seemed to be struck by an electric current, and she froze instantly. Her cheeks were burning, her heart was racing, and she was so shy she could hardly breathe. Due to overwhelming nerves, she rushed to the bathroom to calm herself. While she was lost in her joy and excitement, a quiet conversation suddenly came from the next stall. It turned out that everything was a scheme carefully arranged by her sister Chelsea to set her up with Brad. However, hearing the conversation from others, it took on another meaning, which made Rose feel extremely embarrassed. Anger rose in her heart, and she felt like a fool, used as a laughingstock by others. Furious, she found Chelsea. Years ago, Rose's parents had passed away in a car accident, and Chelsea's family had adopted her. Since then, their relationship had been as close as sisters. But at this moment, Rose felt that Chelsea's actions were nothing but a humiliation. Her anger made it nearly impossible for her to control herself. She stormed out of the party, with Chelsea anxiously chasing behind, trying to explain everything. However, Rose, still angry, refused to listen to her explanation and rode away on her e-bike, not looking back. Just then, a car came speeding toward her and hit her without mercy. When Rose woke up again, it was a week later. Fortunately, she survived. But unfortunately, her jaw was severely damaged, and her face had undergone a noticeable distortion. Some of the skin could not fully attach. In addition, part of her colon had been removed. Though she now needed to go to the bathroom more frequently, the overall impact was not too severe. Despite Chelsea and Dr. Jerry trying to comfort Rose, she insisted on seeing her injuries with her own eyes. When the bandages were slowly removed, the image in the mirror made her feel deep fear and despair. She could barely recognize herself. At that moment, she felt helpless, not knowing how to continue her life. To take care of Rose, Chelsea moved her to her home, and at the same time gave her some bad news. The company had fired her. In the days that followed, Rose stayed at home, surviving only on liquid food. Her world turned gray, and she was completely immersed in despair. Until one day, she accidentally saw an advertisement. The ad claimed to be an advanced medical program that used stem cell technology to help humans break through physical limits and unlock evolutionary potential. They especially welcomed patients with difficult illnesses to try the treatment, and if their condition was special, they could even experience the latest medical technologies that were yet to be made public. The ad ignited a flicker of hope in Rose's heart, and although it was faint, it was enough to make her question her decision to continue avoiding reality. Founder Burroughs personally examined Rose's condition. Seeing her severe injuries, he showed deep sympathy and concern. He expressed great honor for Rose's arrival and, after learning about her condition, solemnly promised to waive all treatment fees. At the same time, he gave her plenty of time to think it over. Burroughs stood outside, quietly listening to the conversation inside, until Rose was finally persuaded by Chelsea. Then he smiled contentedly, as if everything had gone according to plan. That afternoon, in a mysterious operating room, Burroughs changed into a blood-red surgical gown and prepared for surgery. He used the most advanced permanent papery technique. The entire procedure was quick and smooth. That night, when Rose woke up, she carefully removed the bandages. What she saw before her was almost unbelievable. The wound seemed to have never existed. What delighted her even more was that the freckles on her face had vanished without a trace. Even her facial features were more delicate and perfect. The night before, Rose had a dream. In it, she embraced and kissed a man she had never met in a pool, and in the end, she bit his tongue. Everything felt so real, as if she had experienced it herself. Burroughs told her that dreams are a way of self-expression. Whether it's desire or fear, they are reflections of the inner self. In his view, water symbolizes emotions. Entering the pool means a desire to explore the unknown and gain a deeper understanding of oneself. Many things cannot be explained by science. After hearing this, Rose instinctively accepted Burroughs' explanation. To celebrate Rose's discharge, Chelsea took her to the old club. Unlike the last time, the security guard at the door didn't challenge Rose as before. This made her pause in surprise, and for the first time she deeply felt the special treatment that comes with being beautiful. At that moment, her former boss, Gunter, walked out of the club. They unexpectedly ran into each other. When Gunter saw Rose, he immediately recognized her, exclaimed, and called her name. Rose paused for a moment, then walked back. It all seemed so unbelievable to her. It was the first time she had ever heard such praise from Gunter. What surprised her even more was that when Gunter learned that the black dress she was wearing was one she designed herself, he immediately extended an invitation to collaborate. Rose didn't refuse, and seeing this, Chelsea couldn't contain her happiness because Gunter had never shown such enthusiasm toward any subordinate. The lights flickered, the crowd surged, and laughter and music merged into a lively ocean. Beneath the joy, a mysterious virus was silently spreading. In a quiet corner, Rose and a strange man were about to engage more intimately. The next moment, Rose's fingers traced deep scratches across the man's chest. The terrifying scene made Rose suddenly wake up. It was all just a dream. On the set of the TV show, the first man Rose saw in her dream appeared here. He is the male lead of the show. Usually gentle and refined, but at this moment he had transformed completely, with eyes full of madness and rage, exuding a highly aggressive aura. Without warning, he suddenly got into a violent conflict with a junior actor standing nearby, causing the set to descend into chaos. The director, standing not far away, was initially shocked by the scene, but quickly regained his composure. He quickly walked over to the camera and filmed the dramatic scene that had unfolded unexpectedly. By the time people reacted and tried to intervene, it was too late. That night, the attacked actor reenacted the same scene in the hospital, assaulting multiple nurses and caretakers. Unaware of this, Rose once again visited the cosmetic surgery hospital and shared her dream with Burroughs. She felt like she was turning into a monster, but Burroughs reassured her that it was all just a fantasy. Eventually, with Burroughs' comforting words, Rose temporarily accepted what he called the truth. Meanwhile, the entire city's medical system had collapsed, and more people were being sent to medical institutions. Experts confirmed that the virus had an incubation period of only 48 hours, meaning the infected had almost no time for effective treatment. In response, the authorities decided to inject rabies vaccines into those with mild infections, hoping to interrupt the virus's spread. For those already in the disease's advanced stage, medical personnel were powerless to help. To prevent further panic, they chose to block the information and issued a vague announcement. Days later, Gunter planned to hold a small fashion showcase. Although it was a modest event, it would attract many well-known figures from the industry. Rose's hand-designed clothing was the highlight of the event, and the one wearing it was Chelsea. Since childhood, the two sisters had worked toward this goal, and now their efforts were finally paying off. On the day of the showcase, the situation completely spiraled out of control. The CDC issued a warning. They admitted that a new strain of rabies virus was rapidly spreading among the crowd. Panic ensued, and the city saw widespread evacuations. Railways and airports were packed with people, and the roads out of the city turned into endless traffic jams. But none of this stopped Gunter from proceeding with the showcase. At this point, Chelsea wasn't doing well. On her way to the company, she had been bitten by an infected person. In pursuit of her dream, she gave up the best opportunity to go to the hospital. Meanwhile, Rose was outside alone, her stomach painfully aching from hunger. In the alley, anguished groans echoed, attracting two men toward her. Upon seeing Rose's appearance, the two men tried to do something unspeakable to her and pulled out their phones to record it. The next moment, a tentacle-like object appeared inside Rose's body, stabbing directly into the man's throat. Then Brad appeared behind the man filming, and after giving him a brutal beating, he carried the unconscious Rose away from the scene. Soon after, the man slowly got back on his feet. When Rose woke up again, she was back at the venue, but vague images from her dream began to surface in her mind. She wasn't sure whether these were illusions or real events. Just then, Brad appeared. He was about to take Rose to the cosmetic surgery hospital, but she refused. She wanted to see Chelsea wearing the dress she designed on the runway. The showcase went smoothly, and Rose sat in the front row, eagerly waiting for Chelsea to appear. Suddenly, there was a scream from the back of the stage, and a female model, covered in blood, crawled out. Moments later, Chelsea appeared in front of the audience, dressed in a bright red outfit like a flower from hell, glowing vibrantly. However, the venue had descended into chaos. Gunter angrily accused Chelsea. The next moment, Chelsea opened her bloody mouth and lunged at him. At the same time, heavy footsteps echoed outside, and a monster slowly walked toward the center of the venue, emitting a nauseating aura. A tactical team arrived and fired a barrage of bullets at the monster and Chelsea. Amid the confusion, Brad seized the opportunity to forcibly take Rose away. The two quickly arrived at Burroughs Hospital and were led into a red room. The door closed automatically, and they were trapped inside. Brad's dream was to become a reporter. He had always longed for an opportunity to become famous. At that moment, Rose finally realized that she had fallen into a carefully crafted trap from the very beginning. Brad desperately tried to shift the blame onto Burroughs, attempting to make Rose believe that he was helpless in all of this. His excuses and justifications only made Rose feel more cold and disgusted. Those moments that once made her heart flutter now seemed fake and ironic. Just then, Rose heard the confession she had longed to hear. But instead of feeling joy, this confession made her feel deeply repulsed. Brad angrily charged at Burroughs, but he couldn't harm him in the slightest. The next moment, red liquid fell from the ceiling, and the room filled with the thick smell of blood. Rose's stomach began to hurt again, and Brad stepped back in fear. Brad nervously watched every movement Rose made, constantly retreating. But he didn't notice a wriggling object behind him. The monster was Burroughs' wife. Years ago, she had contracted cancer and, in her final moments, donated her body to this project. Through studying his wife, Burroughs had finally achieved a huge breakthrough. At first, she could still maintain her human form, but later, due to the cancer cells, she turned into what she is now. However, in Burroughs' eyes, his wife was now at her most beautiful. Meanwhile, Rose began to lose control over the instincts of this body. The next moment, a tentacle pierced through Brad's retreating body. Rose struggled and grabbed the blade from Brad's hand, severing the tentacle protruding from her body. But it was still too late. Brad's life came to an end. Step by step, Rose walked toward Burroughs' wife. She intended to end this woman's life of suffering. Burroughs' roar echoed in the small space, but couldn't stop what was happening. After doing everything, Rose walked in front of Burroughs and, with the blade in her hand, ended her own life. She believed that this was the only way to end this disaster. Days later, the virus spread to countries around the world. Although the spread was slowed down by certain methods, the source of the virus remained unknown. At Burroughs' call, the unconscious Rose woke up. Her wounds had completely healed, and Rose had become Burroughs' newest and most intelligent host.